Hello everyone. So this is chapter 5 from my contemporary romance novel Under a Namibian Sky. Back at the lodge, the Ellie enthralled everyone. It wasn't an everyday occurrence, even here, to meet such a young baby elephant. Luca went to find Santina, so she too could experience the Ellie. Auntie Elsa and the kitchen staff came out to coo over the little creature, but Kerry, ever practical, took one look at Naomi's face and ordered sweet tea for everyone to help ease the shock of the morning's events. Then she went off to call the vet and arranged with an elephant orphanage for someone to come to the lodge to recommend what to do with the Ellie. Everyone reluctantly left to get on with their day when it became clear there was nothing more they could do while they waited for the vet to arrive. Although it was still early in the morning, the sun was already hot. The experts at the elephant orphanage had advised the Ellie should immediately go into a cosy dark room with only one person attending it. They also suggested the mixture of milk for the Ellie and confirmed someone would be at the lodge within the hour to assess the Ellie. Luca had taken many pictures of the little animal on the way back to the lodge and was showing Santina the images on his digital camera. Auntie Elsa came to Santina's rescue, suggesting an early breakfast, which both Santina and Luca welcomed. But as they followed Auntie Elsa to the lapa, Luca remembered he'd invited Naomi for breakfast and went looking for her. Naomi had been so vulnerable in front of him. He could still feel the softness of her body against his as he'd held her. He touched the faint white salt marks her tears had left behind on his t-shirt when it had dried. It felt good to be needed by her, to comfort her. He had a feeling she didn't allow many people to see her vulnerable side, nor did she appear to need anyone. What could have happened to her that she carried herself with such dignity and restraint at such a young age? She must be around 24, 25? She was an enigma, a puzzle to solve. It was fun flirting with her, teasing her, witnessing her embarrassment and confusion, but she was invading his thoughts more and more. Was he falling for her? He'd only known her for less than a day, and already she'd unlocked emotions inside him he never thought possible to feel. He'd have to watch himself with her. He found Naomi leaning on the bottom half of the storeroom door behind which sheltered the baby elephant. One guard had assumed the role of surrogate mother, and although the Ellie was still crying and wouldn't take the bottle from him, the guard kept trying to get it to feed and to soothe it. It was heartbreaking to see. When Luca touched Naomi's shoulder, she turned to look at him. She'd stopped crying, but her eyes were the saddest eyes he'd ever seen. "How about that breakfast you'd promised to join me for?" "I never—" "Yes, you did, only you didn't realize you did. Come, join me." With one last look at the elephant baby, Naomi allowed Luca to pull her away. He didn't remove his arm from her shoulders as he led her towards the lapa. She felt soft against his body and he liked it. But the question uppermost in his mind would no longer be silenced. "Does it happen often?" "Does what happen often?" "You know, that poachers kill the mother and then the baby is left behind." Naomi sighed. "Unfortunately, it happens more often than you can imagine, all over Africa. That's why there's an elephant orphanage near here. They're great at taking in the Ellies, nurturing them and introducing them to other orphans when they're ready. That way, they grow up in a ready-made herd. But elephants are such special animals. They grieve their dead as we do, and they never forget." Luca could feel the little elephant's plight had had a bigger impact on Naomi than he'd imagined. He couldn't blame her. It was awful to see the small animal's distress. Naomi's mind seemed to be elsewhere, and Luca wanted to comfort her, but wasn't sure how to do it, other than with his questions. "What happens to the poachers when they're caught?" Naomi sighed again. "That's the real sadness, I suppose. They're often just poor people from the area being bribed and paid just enough so it would tempt them to continue doing their master's bidding. The big money doesn't go to them. It goes to untouchable kingpins somewhere in the Orient. The money goes back into the massive and very well-organized wildlife trade and is often used to fund larger-scale activity, including militia. It's a vicious circle for these people." Naomi sounded so sad. Luca squeezed her shoulders. "My God, I had no idea this was going on. I suppose it's such a big problem. Where to start to fix it?" "Some people are fighting back. There's a guy who is into rhino conservation big time. He believes poaching will stop when the rhino horn is no longer available. He has over 800 rhino on his property, and he has dehorned them all. He may have a point because there is no poaching on his property other than the usual." Luca's eyes had asked the question before he formed the words. "The usual?" "You know, poor natives, killing the odd animal here and there to feed their families." The way she said it, Luca realized it was a usual way of existence here, one he had never even contemplated. An idea started to form in his mind, but before he could give it too much room, he needed food. "Talking of feeding," he took her hand and pulled her along as he lengthened his strides, smiling at her. It had the desired effect of lightening her mood a little, and she gave him a small giggle for his efforts. In the shade of the Lapa, Santina was already enjoying her usual light breakfast in the company of Auntie Elsa, when Luca and Naomi took their seats at the table. Auntie Elsa glanced at Naomi but said nothing. Luca noticed the glance and guessed at it. He was an employer himself, after all. He realized that, no matter how much he enjoyed her company, Naomi was a member of staff here. Perhaps it was frowned upon for a staff member to join guests at mealtimes. He didn't intend to allow their rules to hinder his enjoyment of Naomi's company, and that included mealtimes. He smiled when he spoke. "I had to follow Naomi into the desert and help to bring back a baby elephant before she agreed to have breakfast with me. I can't imagine what I'd have to do for a dinner invitation." Much to Naomi's dismay, the women laughed, and the serving girl snickered behind her hand at Luca's unexpected statement. Heat spread up Naomi's neck into her cheeks. She kept her eyes down as an embarrassed smile hovered on her lips. Her reaction only encouraged Luca, who took her hand under the table and gave it a friendly and conspiratorial squeeze. Taking their cue from Luca, breakfast became a light-hearted affair. When Kerry joined them and brought along Johan from the elephant orphanage, Luca realized his assessment of staff participating in meals might have been incorrect. He liked Johan and Kerry immediately. Johan was a very large man and obviously had a kind heart. He left no one in doubt about his passion for elephants, as he answered all Luca's and Santina's questions and provided interesting elephant tidbits. His booming voice reverberated off the Lapa's high ceiling. It was a joy listening to Johan's stories. One could hardly miss hearing him. Johan had a habit of laughing about something before revealing the source of its mirth. This occasion was no exception. His infectious laugh ran through the entire lodge before he told them the reason. "One guy over in Lesotho has trained his elephants to search out the poachers. So the hunted has become the hunter, and they're bloody good at it too. Their pads are so soft, the poachers can't hear them coming. He's a clever bloke, that guy." Just as breakfast finished, the vet arrived. He and Johan went to inspect the Ellie in the storeroom, where it has been made as comfortable as possible. They didn't want too many people there to upset it, so everyone went about their business, but with an eye on the storeroom in case any news came from there. Kerry retreated to her office. Auntie Elsa took Santina to the veranda for coffee. Luca went to his room to download his pictures, and Naomi went to sit at the wrought iron table beside the kitchen door with her mug of coffee. Everyone was on tender hooks, hoping for the best outcome for the poor little Ellie. It wasn't too long before Johan and the vet reappeared, talking while they walked back to the lodge. Their body language said everything seemed to be okay with the Ellie. As though they all had a sixth sense, Kerry, Auntie Elsa and Santina, Luca and several of the kitchen staff appeared as Johan and the vet reached the lodge. The vet declared the baby well enough to travel, and Johan readied his special truck to transport it to the orphanage. Luca took his place beside Naomi and placed his arm around her shoulders as they watched Johan load the Ellie into his truck. Johan took special care to make sure the baby elephant was comfortable. The vet had sexed the baby, and Johan had named her Naomi. Tears welled up in Naomi's eyes as the little elephant Naomi was driven slowly down the road to her new home. At least this little Naomi would have a better start in life than her namesake had. Johan shouted his invitation to everyone to visit the little Ellie as he drove away, his elbow resting on the truck's open window. After watching the truck until it disappeared around a bend in the road, everyone went on their way to do whatever their day dictated. Luca's arm was still around Naomi's shoulders. He turned to her. "As it's too late now for a sunrise safari, would you like to see the pictures I took of the elephants instead?" She nodded, and together they walked to his suite. She sat down on a lounger near the pool while he went inside to get his camera and laptop. Luca was happy and proud that his photos were so clear and professional. Silently, he thanked the fantastic new equipment he'd bought for this trip, and that he took the time to learn how to use it properly. There were gorgeous pictures of the huge elephant bull from the evening before, and touching photos of the dead elephant mother with her baby. But the videos he shot of little Naomi were beyond adorable. "I've been thinking," Naomi looked up when he didn't continue. "I'd like to do something to help with the poacher problem. I want to highlight it." "How?" "I'm thinking of writing an article and submitting it to National Geographic with some of these pictures. What do you think?" The expression on Naomi's face spoke of her happy surprise and excitement. "Oh, that would be fantastic, Luca. You would do that?" "Of course. The editor is an old family friend. I'm sure he'd be delighted to help such a worthy cause." "I don't know what to say, how to thank you." Naomi's eyes became guarded when Luca's eyes took on an instant mischievous glint. He closed the laptop and sank onto the lounger next to her, his hands behind his head, feet crossed as his ankles. Let me see. How can you thank me?" "Oh no, I won't do anything silly or foolish, so you can just stop right there, mister. I've got your measure now. I'm grateful for your help, but not that grateful." Luca pretended to be hurt, but the glint in his eyes and the smile lurking around the corners of his mouth betrayed him. "I can't imagine why you'd think I'd have anything silly or foolish in mind." "Okay then, give it your best shot. How would you like to accompany me to an authentic Italian restaurant tonight?" Naomi giggled. "As I said, I'm not going to do anything silly or foolish. Where do you see an Italian restaurant around here? Never mind an authentic one." "I mean it. We could fly to Windhoek, have a lovely dinner, and be back before midnight. What do you say? It'll be fun, I promise." Luca was sitting up on the lounger, his eyes full of hope. He took her astonished smile as affirmation and opened his laptop to book a table for them and to arrange transport to and from the restaurant in Windhoek. "I'll book the table for 7. Would that work for you?" Naomi's eyes still betrayed her thoughts that he was being mischievous and playing with her. "Sure. What time do you want me to meet you for our flight there? You think I'm joking, don't you? I never joke about food or flying. And I'll never joke about inviting you somewhere with me. Luca could see her hesitation and wasn't surprised by her next question. Will Santina and Auntie Elsa be joining us as well? No, Naomi. I'd love it if it were just us for dinner, wouldn't you? The way her name sounded on his lips made him feel all wobbly inside. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and sharing my videos, and thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. I'm so honoured and I feel so happy that you're doing that because it helps me to put out more videos on YouTube for you. Until next time.